Hey, let's get my wee noggin in focus. We're back on the YouTube business. I am really enjoying creating here because I haven't been really strict about posting cadence, frequency of videos, and I think historically that has very much been the narrative, and that's how, like, I've kind of felt, not anymore, but especially in the early days, like, right, I need to hit X amount of posts per week. And I just don't think that's social media anymore. I've been saying for years, quality over quantity. And I follow loads of creators on here and people who, on YouTube, might post once a month, sometimes twice a month, sometimes it's once a week. And they go through like these real varying stages of being frequent and then not. And their videos still consistently get great views. They still, have great engagement, and I'm not doing it for that reason. I'm doing it because I really enjoy sharing this way, and I'm really at peace with the fact that this will be a slow burner and it's probably not gonna grow into something crazy big for a while, and that's fine. But I like to vocalize my thoughts, and I find it really easy to do it this way because it then informs the rest of my content. But funnily enough, I had vlogged a piece of day in the life content, and I'd filmed the whole thing, and usually if I say I'm going to do something like that, I get distracted by a cookie and then it derails the whole process. And I was really good, had the edit ready to go, and I was watching it and I was just like, this doesn't feel like me. And not because I wasn't being myself or anything was different, but that kind of content just doesn't feel where I'm at right now. I've been creating content for 5 years, and I think when I was watching it, I was like, there's parts of my life I actually just really want to preserve. And not that the day was particularly scandalous or anything crazy happened. It was just me doing my usual thing, working, going about my day, the gym, being at the studio, and then preparing for a brand event. And throughout it, I was sharing tips on public speaking and stuff, but I just watched it back, and even though it wasn't a super personal video, there was something about it for me that just felt like, I don't know if this is the kind of content I want to share on YouTube. And all that to say, I think no matter where you're at in your journey of content creation, even if you're I know exactly what I like creating, I think it's really important to try different formats, even if you don't post them, even if you don't share them, just to figure out what you do like. And the feedback that I've had on this is that, it feels like I'm chatting to a mate, I feel like I'm in your living room. And that's always what I've wanted to achieve with my content. And there's an exercise that I do, which I'd highly recommend you do if you're someone that's creating content or thinking about it, as a way to kind of sense check how you feel about your work online versus offline. And it's to create, whether it's a mood board, whether it's a list of words, whether it's something you journal about, but your idea of what you would like your own physical space to feel like. So how do you want to feel in it? How do you want others to feel in it? Is there music playing? Is there plants in there? Are you burning candles? Is there food? Are people chatting? And I did this exercise a while ago, and it's really interesting. I'm in my studio right now. It's a creative content studio that we hire out to people. And I think my studio is an embodiment of what my content to feel like. I want it to be inspiring. I want it to invite new ways of thinking. It's bright, it's open, it's very chilled in here. We always have incense burning. We've always got a cute, chill, relaxing but vibey YouTube mix on, music. And I watched the day in the life and I was like, this feels a bit chaotic, and it feels a bit it wasn't, but it felt like that to watch. I want this to be a really easy, chill watch. So all of that to say, I think it's really important to come back to the pursuit, sense check against, why am I doing this? What is it for? And yeah, I feel a bit more clear on I like this format. I think this will be my format. I'm not wedded to it. It might change. So I'm going to introduce myself because I always forget to do that. So my name is Daisy. I'm a content and community strategist. I'm also the author of Community is Your Currency, which is a 10-step guide that teaches people how to be the connecting thread that unites people through their work, and all of the different ways that you can do that, from listening to your audience, finding out their wants, needs, creating content that feels aligned and connected to you, and then merging online with offline, amongst a lot of other things. I consult with brands and people, founders, businesses, and I teach modules for businesses. I guest lecture at unis, and I host my own events and have my own offline and online community. So that's me in a nutshell. Today I really want to talk about a few different things. I was invited to LinkedIn's head office this week to talk about how AI is impacting the job market, and I'm going to talk about some of the insights on that. I haven't been paid to talk about this, I'm not obligated to talk about it, but I found it really, really interesting, and some of the takeaways and some of the things that were shared I just feel like really valuable, and lots of insight and lessons in that. I'm going to talk about AI Granny, if you've not seen her. Stay tuned, we're going to talk about her today. And I also want to talk about how the mundane moments of the human experience are basically becoming a new editorial angle for brands, as AI is just like eroding trust in what's real and what isn't real. And within all of this, I'll share some thoughts, ideas, and insights that you could maybe apply to your own content or just have a think about. Ooh, just a little raspberry tea situ. Oh, she's good. She's good. I'm usually a lemon and ginger girl, but she's a good one. So, LinkedIn. I got an email inviting me to a roundtable with lots of other creators, business owners, journalists, recruitment specialists about how AI is impacting the recruitment industry. And initially I was like, what the hell? Like, why me? Not in a like pick me, choose me way, but I was just kind of like, oh, I'm really flattered, but also really curious. And I think whenever I'm invited to these spaces, I'm always keen to understand, most importantly for me, is like, what does this mean for the creative community? Because most of the people who are part of Selfhood, the WhatsApp group, come to our events, are operating in that space. Also, if you're thinking about coming to the events and you're not in that space, everyone is welcome. And we get lots of people 9 to 5, but the majority are illustrators, photographers, videographers, people working in film, fashion, TV. So I'm always curious to know, okay, how is this impacting them? And there were 3 things that I took away from the event that felt really important and things I really wanted to share. And to be completely transparent, I'm not against AI, but I'm not super for it. So there are some things that I just don't think we should be using AI for, and there are certain creative things that I feel very precious about that should come from the human experience and should be made by human. I'm not going to sit here and lie and say I don't use AI. I use it to organise my thoughts. I use it to transcribe notes and make sense of what I need to do next. I have a very creative brain, and I find it really helpful for organising documents and putting my ideas into more of a formulaic, I guess, like, it's a tool that I use to just help me organise more than anything. So I went into it just feeling a bit like, okay, I'm kind of on the fence in that, like, I use it for certain things, but there's some things that I really, I'm not for. So we got in there, and it was hosted by my really good friend, Steph Sword-Williams, who is amazing, by the way. If you're not following her on socials, pop her thingy here, her handle here. She talks about everything from career progression to confidence to self-promotion. She's just a really great voice in the space, so please do go check her out. And we just spoke about how we're using AI and how we see it impacting our processes. And there was an ex-recruiter in the room called Sean Kennedy, who worked in recruitment for years, now has a recruitment consultancy. And he was saying that recruiters are now actively looking for things like typos in CVs, because there is so much software available now that you could put in a job description, put in your info, and it will create a CV for you. And I thought that was so interesting, because I guess lecture at lots of unis, I work with lots of people who are going into entry-level roles. A lot of people I know are kind of pivoting at the moment and thinking about what's next for them. And I think that was just a really stark reminder that although it might feel like when you're looking for your next opportunity, and this could be for freelance opportunities, this could be client pitches, I think this relates to everything, but being a bit more human, leading with the story that makes you you. And I know that's really live, laugh, love, cliche, generic advice, but to hear that from a recruiter who is seeing this day in, day out, I think that was just a really interesting affirmation that while everyone feels like it needs to be super polished, actually even recruiters and people who are reading hundreds of documents and hundreds of applications are looking for something human. That does come with a caveat that obviously you still need to appear professional. So I'm not suggesting that people go and put a load of intentional typos in their CVs or cover letters or portfolios or whatever, but ensuring that the language comes directly from you. Steph shared a really good tip. She said when she was applying for jobs, in her bio, she said, and if you want to ask me how I'm related to the world's tallest man, feel free to ask me. And she said everyone in the interview that she spoke to brought that question up. So it could even be that you have something that just feels a bit more you, or something that you're going to be remembered by and isn't just this like polished end result. Jane Hamilton, who is a senior journalist at The Times and The Sun and covers business and careers, also shared something really interesting. There's a new piece of research that has found that probation periods are being extended from 3 months to 6 months because AI is inflating people's capabilities at the application stage, and employers are now having to basically wait to see if people can actually prove that they're capable of what they say they are, which again I think is just A, a real shame, but B, just more and more of a indicator and a reminder that AI is not there to generate the ideas and do the doing for you. It is an executor and it is a tool. And a lot of our conversation at LinkedIn this week was around not using AI as a crutch, which I personally don't feel I ever do. Like I never get to a point where I think, oh my gosh, I've used ChatGPT too much, or like I'm outsourcing this too much. I feel very confident in my thinking, and it's actually what I enjoy most about my job. But I've spoken to lots of people who are like, I'm like low-key codependent on ChatGPT, not just for work, but also like personally. And I think that is a real danger, amongst other things. I know it's a really divisive topic, but when we stop using our brain, and there was a really interesting MIT study that came out, I think, at some point last year, that basically said ChatGPT is like eroding our brain power. Someone else at the event who is far younger than I, they were a 20-year-old entrepreneur, run an amazing Gen Z consultancy, really, really talented guy, but he was just saying like, I've been using ChatGPT for a really long time. My friends have been using ChatGPT for a really long time. In regards to that study, yeah, okay, our brain power might not be used in the same way, but essentially we're just making space for more thinking in other areas. So there's two sides to every story. That was his argument. Mine was kind of like, well, I think of like connection and conversation and in-person conversations like we had at LinkedIn to be the real catalyst for creativity and ideas. And if we're just having a one-way dialogue with a robot that's not really challenging us, can we innovate anything new? And I always feel like that's my source of creativity, that's my source of inspiration. The businesses that I work with, the people that I work with who are really on track to make really good change and do amazing things are really good listeners. They're in constant dialogue with their customers or their community, and yeah, they facilitate conversation and feedback loops, and they're okay with being challenged, and yeah, just listening to the actual sentiment of where people are at versus just guessing or reading about it. So everyone has their own opinion, that was mine. And then the final point that Steph made, amongst a million others, if you ever get the chance to go to any of her talks or read her books, she's so smart and has such a gorgeous perspective on confidence and careers and getting opportunities. She's just got such an amazing brain. But she said, if you're trying to pivot or if you're trying to get a job and you don't quite know how, instead of leaning on AI, go and create those case studies. And this is something I've done myself. I remember when it was COVID time, I lost all of my income, I lost all of my work, I was new to freelancing, and I interviewed a load of businesses in the wellness space because I wanted to start working with brands in that space. And I released a trend report on how COVID was affecting the wellness industry. And I didn't have a social media presence then. I was very like in the background of socials, wasn't really posting. And it generated 600 downloads, and I was fully booked on freelance work within I think it was 2 weeks, and a lot of them were wellness businesses. So as someone that has done this before, and I say this to students when I'm teaching, like if you want to go work in brand activations, go to brand activations, like go and see them in real time, share your thoughts, share your commentary, write blogs about it, write LinkedIn posts about it. And yeah, Steph shared that advice, and I just think it's so great. It's just solid advice to go out and just go and do the things that you want to create, like be your own case study, build a passion project, demonstrate. And it comes back to that thing, show, don't tell. And I think that's one thing that AI can't do. It can talk the talk and it can give like generic ideas. And I always remind people, AI is trained on your IP, your client's IP. Like, it's a regurgitation of what's already out there. And that can be fine if you're trying to refine something or like have an execution plan or provide a bit more structure to what you're doing. But if you're trying to innovate and create new ideas, I think the general consensus in the room at LinkedIn this week was you have to be having conversations and you need to be challenged and you need to be in environments that are different with people that you wouldn't necessarily usually speak to. And I have to say, like, I was in the room with so many interesting people on whenever it was this week, and I left feeling so inspired because they were people that weren't in the industries that I necessarily have a presence in or speak to people in. So, you know, when you meet new people and they're just all doing different things and you're like, my brain feels very juicy. I don't know what that means. But also just on that, I think it's really important, and something I'm going to do this year is to go to events that aren't necessarily related to my industry and go to events outside of my industry. So yeah, really interesting event. The second thing I want to talk about is the AI granny. B-A-D-I-E, Bethany. So like Badie, drop a D. I don't know if it's Badie. I don't know if it's Badie. So a couple of years ago, I found this influencer called Badie Winkle, who I've just realised maybe this is meant to be inspired by Badie Winkle. Badie Winkle is sadly no longer with us. She passed away. But she was this grandma, a real one, not an AI one, who just used to live her best life and would wear like tie-dye t-shirts with hot pants and talk about like dating and just had this really happy-go-lucky attitude to life. And I think for a lot of young people, it was just this real reassurance of life beyond your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. I think she was like in her 80s. She was just such a breath of fresh air and just a real joy to watch. And since then, there's been a real uprising of grandparent influencers. So I think it was Dazed or Hypebeast or one of the publications did a article about this recently, which I will surface and pop here, about the rise of grandparents, as in parents on Instagram. There's a few brands that have started to work with older models and just the elderly to represent their campaigns. And recently, last year, I launched a series of intergenerational events with an elderly community in North London called Third Age Community, and it's a charity that works with people over the age of 60 to give them a new lease of life. And we meet once a quarter, we do a creative workshop, and it's people from my community, so Gen Z, millennials, and the pensioners, and it's just beautiful. There's so much purity to those days. There's so much joy in the conversations, and I think the thing I love about it is, and I said this phrase in my newsletter, and it's kind of like what I think about when I think of them, but they speak from memory and not from content. So they speak with stories, like they share real life stories. They have so many memories that they recount when you talk to them, and it just feels like a real pure conversation. There's no like, oh my God, I saw this TikTok the other day. It's like, oh, back when I was in my 20s, we did it this way. And it's just really refreshing. So I think the reason that I feel like so weird about this AI granny, which I'll talk about more in a sec, is that for me, elderly people are like the only last pure generation that we have. Like generations below that, like, are on TikTok and WhatsApp. I mean, my nan actually does have TikTok, and we are in a WhatsApp group. She's very tech savvy, but it doesn't dictate her whole life. Like, she could lose her phone for a week and literally be living the dream. But I know that like my parents, for example, like they're on social media, and don't get me wrong, like it doesn't dictate their life and they're still very present, but there is just a sense of purity that comes with the elderly. And basically, Badie Bethany, we'll call her Badie Bethany for the sake of this, has been stealing other creators' content. There's been a lot of controversy about it, to create this online persona of this 82-year-old woman who in fairness looks fantastic, like so glam, so chic, incredible outfits. She looks amazing, but it's so real. Like, I was shooketh to the core. Like, could not believe it. The first couple of posts got me, and I follow so many AI pages that help you spot. Some of the giveaways are for AI content. So like, if an image is really blurry, hands are a big giveaway. There's like a few real telltale signs. This, like, you wouldn't believe. And she's getting brand deals. And I have a stat on the AI creator economy because I think this is really interesting. So the AI creator market is set to grow to $170 billion by 2034. So that's like less than 10 years time, which is wild. And like, I get why brands do it. Like, if we're talking business to business, it's cheap, it's cost effective. They can be extremely specific in terms of what they want, from a messaging perspective, from a script perspective, from a shot list, from everything. Like, they own that detail, because a prompt is way easier to guide than a human, in that, like, me as a creator, I feel protective about the brand that I've built. So there might be things in a brand brief that I might not want to say, or might not feel connected to my values. So from a business POV, yeah, okay, cool, like, it makes sense. But I just feel so weird about creating something that should have been made by a human, especially an elderly human who, in my eyes, are still like really pure and the last remaining generation that aren't dictated by digital noise. It just felt like really weird for me personally. And if you read the comments, people are like, "Go girl, I see my future and it's bright." And I'm like, people don't realise, people aren't seeing that this just like isn't real, and it's really sad. We'll just see more and more of it, which leads me nicely onto my third point, which is around the mundanity of the human experience becoming more and more popular within content. And I think that the influence of AI and seeing these hyper-polished, overly curated moments is actually what's leading to that. So there has been a significant rise of people who are now watching live streamed gaming content. I'll find the exact stat and put it here. I read about it earlier in the week. And I think that's because people are so switched off by the overly curated, overly polished AI content that we're seeing, that they actually just want to watch humans being humans. Complete side note, not related to Twitch content, there is also a really funny comedian called Bailey J Mills, who films themselves on Omegle. I think I'm saying that right, Omegle, like dressed up in fancy dress, but it's really funny. And watching the human reactions, that content series has gone completely viral. And again, I think it's because people just like seeing humans be humans. So I think we'll see the rise of streaming content, the rise of humans being humans. There's also a really amazing photographer, videographer, creator, Sam Euclid, who captures these snapshots of just the human experience. And he'll be like at a beach and he might capture like an older lady sunbathing, reading the newspaper, an older couple holding hands, a couple kissing in the sea. Like, it's all these like candid micro moments that make our humanness. And again, he's grown so quickly and his content generates great engagement. And I think, again, it's because there is just this like huge craving for human content. A really good example of how I've seen this play out into brand content and more, I don't want to say editorial content, because I actually feel like editorial content has completely changed now. So what I mean by that is, like, luxury brands, most of them, are now on TikTok. And when you look at their TikTok content versus their Instagram content, very, very different. So brands like Loewe, brands like Burberry have gone full native TikTok mode. They're working with TikTok creators, leaning into trends. And I think that's because they know that in order to be aspirational while still preserving their brand, they need to peel back the curtain a little bit. Jacquemus, really good example of this. I actually heard him on a podcast last year and he was like, I don't have time to be a snob. Like, I don't have time. Like, I need to let people into my world. Like, I'm the founder of the brand. I want to represent the brand. I want to give people the insight into the world. And I actually think because of the economic unrest that we're seeing and because of the way that the economy is right now, it's a little bit distasteful to be doing these overly glamorous, overly polished, overly luxurious editorial campaigns and polished content that just feels so out of reach for so many people. That's my personal opinion. I actually think it's a little bit distasteful. So when I say editorial content, that was a complete tangent, complete side note on what I was going to say. And the example I wanted to talk about is that the idea of like the overly polished, I think will work for some brands, but for luxury brands, it's almost like you can't afford us, and hey, like our visuals let you know that. And I know before that's been a strategy, and I know for years that was the strategy. But essentially what I was saying was, I think because of the way of the world now, it's just not, it's not the one. High glossy visuals work in lots of different ways. But if you're already a brand that is out of reach for the masses, I don't know, there's ways to do it. Actually, just to give an example of a brand that I think do this really well, there is a sunglasses brand called Low House. Two founders, a creative couple, an older couple. Their content, that for me is like aspirational, done in a really classy but still accessible way. So please do go check them out. I'll pop them here. But their content is chef's kiss. But the example that I wanted to share was from a brand called Mirror Palais, and they are a clothing brand. And I saw this piece of content recently and it really did stop me in my tracks, because I just thought there's a glamorization of the mundane. The dress, I'll put the video here so you can see it. The dress, stunning. The model, stunning. Both models, stunning. So the visual hook is already like, oh wow, look at these beautiful people. So when I say like the human experience, I fully appreciate there's some beautiful humans in some beautiful clothes. But it's this woman just answering the phone to her mum, and she's recounting the conversation. And I just thought it was a really interesting way to create this almost like, again, like behind the curtain, recreating these mundane moments. I can't say that I stand in my kitchen in a black dress, glammed up. When I'm at home, I've got my dressing gown on. It's probably got Dorito dust on it. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not like human experience as in like we're all at home looking that glamorous, but I mean the situation, the backdrop, the environment. And I think, again, when we look at the context of how AI can make things feel like so far removed from reality, I'm also really aware there's a lot of AI tools that make things look hyper real, and not everything that comes out of AI is like really glossy and really polished. But I think the more human that we can lean into, the more of those micro moments that make the human experience that we can share and we can talk about, I think we'll see more of that. But I think it will also become like proof of real and proof of humanness. So yeah, that's what I wanted to chat about today. A few thoughts on how it's all going down. Really inspiring conversations, and gave me loads to think about. And I think I would love to say and share, if you're feeling a bit stagnant and you don't know what to create and you're feeling a bit lost, go to an event and talk to people, preferably one not in your industry. Go to an event where you don't know anyone, go to an event where you don't know what the subject matter is, and yeah, I think you'll find yourself feeling a bit more inspired. I'm gonna go eat a sandwich now and do some work that I have been avoiding. And yeah, once again, loved this. Loved just waffling. And I really appreciate everyone who has commented on my last posts and watched and shown love, and who I've seen at events and have said, keep going, I really enjoy your YouTube, because it means a lot. And yeah, I really like doing it. So as I said, I haven't got a schedule. It's not going to be like, yo, YouTube every Monday. Visuals are going to be very chill. I really actually prefer it. The vlog with all the like mix-ups of scenes and jazzy fonts, really, really cool, but not for me. So stay tuned for more on the sofa, chilling. I feel like this might have been out of focus the whole time, but might be alright actually. Peace and love.